Her name drifts through history like a shadow that refuses to fade. Jezebel, a queen whose beauty could disarm the fiercest warrior, yet whose presence carried a darkness few dared to face. Whispers say she rewrote the fate of kings, turned nations toward idols, and challenged the very God of Israel himself. But how much of that is truth, and how much is legend? Some call her the most wicked queen the world has ever known. Others say her story hides a far deeper and more dangerous secret, one that still reaches across centuries into our world today. Could the spirit that once moved through her still be at work, unseen, but closer than we think? If you stand against deception and for God's truth, type 777 inches, the comments as your declaration. And to those who've been lifting this channel through your super thanks, you are the heartbeat of these stories. And I pray blessings over you in abundance. Now, step with me toward the gates of an ancient city by the sea, where power was worshipped like a god, and where the first shadows of her story began to fall. The terrifying truth about Jezebel, the most wicked queen in the Bible. Long ago, so far back that the years have vanished into the mists of forgotten time, and the world was shaped not by the will of ordinary men, but by the decrees of kings and the silent, unseen hands of the gods. Among the kingdoms of that distant age stood Sidon, a city crowned with ancient majesty. Its streets glimmered under the relentless blaze of the sun, and its fields bloomed with flowers of the deepest purple, swaying gently in the breeze like waves of royal velvet spread out upon the earth. The air was heavy with their fragrance, mingling with the salt breath of the sea, a sea that was no mere body of water, but a living mirror reflecting the heavens, vast, endless, and mysterious. It seemed to hold the gaze of divine powers that watched over the land, powers whose will could raise kingdoms or sweep them into ruin. It was here, in this meeting place of sea and sky, that a princess was born, Jezebel. Her arrival was not into obscurity, but into the very heart of power. She was the daughter of King Ethbel, the sovereign whose throne rested not only on gold and stone, but on centuries-old customs and a reign of unrelenting, brutal power. His dominion stretched across Sidon and Tyre like an unyielding shadow, his name spoken with reverence by some, and with a hushed fear by others. In this city, every stone, every breeze off the sea, seemed to carry the weight of that authority. From her earliest days within the palace walls, Jezebel was never shaped to be a mere ornament for the court's display. She was not meant to simply glide through banquets, wearing jewels and smiles for the sake of tradition. No, she was being fashioned into a force that would stand on her own, a presence that could command a room and bend its atmosphere to her will. Her very name, even in youth, carried the weight of something yet to come, something that, in time, would echo far beyond the marble halls of Sidon, across kingdoms and generations. While other young women of her station were taught the graceful arts, how to pour wine without a ripple, how to bow without seeming too low, how to speak softly yet charm the ear, Jezebel's lessons were of a far more dangerous kind. She was taught to wield influence as one might wield a finely tempered blade. She learned the subtle dance of court politics, the intricate steps that could topple an enemy or raise an ally without spilling a drop of blood. She understood how to let a single phrase sway a decision, how to wrap her words around a man's thoughts until his will became her own. And she trained her eyes to see beyond the gilded veils of illusion that cloaked kingdoms, to the currents of ambition and fear flowing beneath. Her mind grew razor-sharp, her instincts quick and unerring. Jezebel did not merely join the game of power, she consumed it, mastered it. She came to know that true power was not a crown set upon one's head by birthright, nor the ink of royal titles upon a scroll. It was the unseen hand that guided outcomes, the quiet voice that turned doubt into obedience, the skill to forge alliances and bind them tighter than iron. And above all, she learned the truth few dared to admit. The ones who truly ruled were those who could bend others to their will, who could take what seemed impossible and make it appear inevitable. Yet, despite her royal blood, despite the line of suitors who paraded themselves in hopes of winning her hand, Jezebel's gaze was never caught by the simple promises of tradition or romance. She was not a woman to be swept away by love's charm or trapped within the walls of an arranged union. Marriage, to her, was no fairy tale ending. It was a calculated move, a strategic step in a larger game. And when she chose to wed, it would be to a man whose presence amplified her reach, whose position served her purpose. This union would not be a bond of affection, but a bridge to her ultimate desire control. As the years flowed like a river through the shifting sands of time, whispers from the land of Israel began to stir, carried on the winds that brushed against the walls of Sidon. Israel, a kingdom fractured, divided by internal strife, yet still burning with a fierce potential. At its helm sat King Ahab, a monarch whose throne was inherited through the bloodline of his father, yet whose soul seemed bereft of the fire that burns within true rulers. His reign, though secure, lacked the passion, the vision that could drive a kingdom to greatness. To the people of Israel, Ahab might have appeared a king, but to Jezebel, he was nothing more than a tool, an instrument, a pawn in a game of power that she was destined to command. How could she see him as anything more than a means to an end? Was there any true greatness within him? Or was he simply another player in a much larger scheme? What drew her to him was not his power or his charm, but his vulnerability, his undeniable need for an ally, a queen to fortify his kingdom. It was a weakness that she saw not as a flaw, but as an opportunity. Ahab was not a king to be admired from afar. He was a figure whose hunger for influence and protection could only be satisfied by her presence. Could he even comprehend the extent of what she could offer him? Or was he too blinded by his own need to see the greater picture? To Jezebel, the throne of Israel was not an end in itself. It was a bridge to her greater ambition. She knew that Ahab's desperation was her gateway. She was not interested in being a queen who stood beside a king. No. She envisioned herself as something far greater. She would rule, not as a mere consort, but as the very force behind the throne. Ahab would be the puppet, and she, the unseen hand that guided his movements. Could he truly understand that his position would never be more than a tool in her hands? She would not simply be the flame that illuminated the court, she would be the fire that consumed it, while Ahab remained little more than a flickering candle in the wind, struggling to keep his flame alive. When the proposal for marriage came, Jezebel accepted it without hesitation. But her acceptance was not born of love or romantic longing. No, it was purely strategic. A calculated move in the great game of power she was destined to play. She had already decided what her future would be, and Ahab was merely a pawn in that vision. Leaving the familiar comfort of Sidon behind the warmth of her homeland, the echo of ancient customs that had shaped her, she crossed the vast sea, bound for Israel, her ship cut through the water as if guided by the very hand of fate. Was it truly her will that propelled her forward? Or was this the moment when her destiny, long shaped by the gods, was finally sealed? Israel was a land starkly different from Sidon. The people spoke a foreign tongue. The gods they worshipped were strange to her, and the customs they held dear seemed alien to her senses. Yet, none of this fazed Jezebel. She was a woman of ambition, driven by a vision of power so clear it made the foreign landscape seem insignificant. Could the new land, with all its differences, truly shake her resolve? She had come to Israel not simply to be a queen, but to be the force that would shape its future, to wield influence from the shadows of the throne. Israel would bow to her will, just as Sidon had. It wasn't the land or the people that would define her, but the mark she would leave upon them. When Jezebel arrived in Israel, she was welcomed with awe and fascination. To the people, she was not just a queen, she was foreign, regal, and above all, beautiful. But her beauty was not confined to her face alone. It was in the way she carried herself. The air of untouchable elegance that enveloped her. Her gaze was cold, piercing, and calculating, and her smile was the kind that spoke not of kindness, but of power, a power that commanded respect and fear in equal measure. Was it her beauty that they truly admired? Or was it something more dangerous? Something that promised to reshape everything she touched? But it was not her beauty that would define her reign. No, it was her ruthlessness, her iron will, and her unwavering belief in her own destiny. Jezebel had come to rule, not to be a mere figurehead beside a king. She married Ahab, and together they ascended to the throne of Israel. Yet, it was immediately apparent that it was Jezebel who held the reins of power. Ahab, though a monarch by title, was weak, easily swayed by others, and too indecisive to lead a fragmented kingdom. Could a king so lacking in strength truly command the respect of his people? Or would his reign be defined by the forces that pulled at the threads of his power? Israel, torn by internal struggles, needed more than a king, it needed a leader. And Jezebel was exactly what it required. She did not merely stand behind Ahab and support his rule, she redefined it entirely. She was a queen, yes, but she was also a conqueror. One who would carve her name into the very foundation of Israel's future. Her presence became the dominant force in the court, a force that brooked no opposition. She began to shape the court in her image, replacing advisors with her own loyalists, those who would serve her interests without question. Any voice that dared to oppose her vision was swiftly silenced, and in its place, only obedience remained. Jezebel's goal was clear. Israel would be her kingdom, no longer Ahab's. No longer God's, but hers. Could anyone stop her? Or had the kingdom already fallen into her hands? Without them even realizing it, her ambition, however, was not without its costs. Jezebel's arrival in Israel was far from a simple political marriage. It was a declaration of war against everything that Israel had stood for. She had come not only to claim the throne, but to reshape the very heart of Israel's faith. Her vision was clear. Israel would not only belong to her in power and politics, but also in spirit. She would transform the kingdom in her image, one step at a time. Was she simply a queen by title? Or did her true power lie in the very essence of who she was, a queen by power, by influence, and by the gods she worshipped? One of her first and most audacious acts as queen was to introduce the worship of Baal. The Phoenician god of fertility, rain, and storms. Baal, a god worshipped by Jezebel's people, was nothing like the God of Israel. The people of Israel had long worshipped Yahweh, the Lord of heaven and earth. Yet, to Jezebel, these differences were irrelevant. What mattered was her vision, her faith, and the control she sought to impose. Could a queen who had risen by manipulation and strength truly be stopped by something as sacred as faith? Could the worship of Yahweh stand in the way of Jezebel's pursuit of absolute dominion? With a fierce determination, Jezebel set about building altars to Baal across the land, erecting statues in his honor, and calling on the people to abandon Yahweh. The priests of Yahweh, once revered and powerful, were silenced. Those who dared to speak against her or oppose her beliefs found their voices crushed. One by one, Jezebel ruled not with kindness or wisdom, but with an iron fist, fear, and manipulation. She had come to Israel to reign, and she would stop at nothing to ensure her vision was fulfilled. Not even the worship of Yahweh, the God of Israel, could stand in her way. In the halls of the palace, Jezebel's power grew with each passing day. She was no longer merely a queen. She had become something far greater, something that Israel had never known before. She was a force, a storm that brewed quietly at first, but soon would rage across the land. Could anyone, even the mighty kings of old, ever have imagined that one woman could rise to hold such sway? And yet, with each passing day, it became clearer that Jezebel was not just a ruler by title, but a force of destiny. Israel would soon learn that to oppose her was to defy fate itself, to stand against the inevitable. As the days passed, Jezebel's shadow grew ever longer over the land of Israel. Her power, her reach, her influence, all of them expanded until it became impossible to distinguish the kingdom from the woman who commanded it. She wasn't simply a queen sitting beside her king. She was the true ruler of the land, pulling the strings from behind the throne. But was it truly the throne that mattered to her? Or was it the power she could mold with her hands? The lives she could control with a word? She had reshaped everything in her image. But was this transformation truly complete? Or was there something, or someone, that could challenge her rise? The winds of Israel began to change once Jezebel had fully established her reign. It was no longer just the influence of a queen at court. It was as though Jezebel herself had become the storm that swept across the land. Every decision, every decree, bore the weight of her will. Her presence in the kingdom became as inescapable as the coming of the seasons. Could any force, even the divine, withstand such a storm? Would the people of Israel ever know peace again? Or was their destiny forever bound to the woman who ruled over them? With Ahab, her husband, a weak and easily swayed monarch, Jezebel stepped into the role of not just queen, but ruler. Her hands guided every decision. Her words dictated every action. She had become the pulse of Israel itself, the very force that kept the kingdom alive. If the kingdom was to be reshaped, it would be done on her terms. And no one, least of all Ahab, would stand in her way. But what would happen if someone, or something, rose to challenge the way she had redefined Israel? Could Jezebel's empire withstand such a challenge? Or had she already reached the peak of her power? Under her direction, Israel's cultural landscape began to change in ways that were both subtle and profound. The grand temples that had once stood as symbols of Israel's devotion to Yahweh, the one true God, were now replaced with towering altars dedicated to Baal. the Phoenician god of storms, fertility, and the harvest, with each stone laid and each idol crafted. The people of Israel were drawn into a transformation they hadn't yet fully grasped. Jezebel's influence had woven itself into the very fabric of the kingdom, altering its core beliefs. Jezebel's belief in Baal's supremacy was unwavering. She believed that by turning Israel away from Yahweh, she could not only secure her reign, but also bring prosperity to the land through the favor of her gods. It wasn't just about power, it was about molding Israel in her image, about reshaping its very soul to reflect her vision. Born and raised in Sidon, she had never seen the worship of Yahweh as sacred. To her, it was merely an obstacle, a belief system rooted in the past that needed to be eradicated in order for her to fully rule. She began to systematically eradicate Yahweh's worship, replacing it with her own. The priests of Yahweh were silenced, and anyone who dared to oppose her vision was crushed. Jezebel's reign was built on fear and manipulation, and she ruled not just with the force of her will, but with an unyielding resolve that made even the mightiest tremble. With the construction of the grand temple of Baal in the heart of Samaria, the people of Israel were forced to bow not to Yahweh, but to the will of Jezebel. The priesthood of Baal flourished under her guidance. The royal court became a place where pagan rituals and sacrifices to Baal were performed openly, and Jezebel's influence spread far beyond the political realm, touching the very spiritual life of Israel. She was a force not just in matters of governance, but in the shaping of the kingdom's soul. Her presence, her power, permeated every corner of Israel, transforming its beliefs, its customs, and its future. Yet for all her power, Jezebel's reign was not without opposition. There were those who still clung to the old faith, the prophets of Yahweh, men who had remained steadfast in their devotion to the true God. These men refused to bow before Baal, and it was they who would stand in Jezebel's way, threatening to undo all she had worked to achieve. Among them was Elijah, a man of great courage and even greater faith. Elijah became a thorn in Jezebel's side, his very presence a challenge to her power. He was the leader of a movement that refused to bend to her influence, a voice that would not be silenced. Could one man, one prophet, truly stand against the might of Jezebel and her gods? For Jezebel, this was a battle she could not afford to lose. Elijah's defiance was not only an attack on her authority, but a direct challenge to her very existence. Elijah's ministry was powerful. He performed miracles, called upon the power of God to rain down fire, and boldly spoke out against the corruption and idolatry that had overtaken Israel. His message was clear and unrelenting: turn back to Yahweh, the true God, or face the consequences. Jezebel, however, would not be swayed. She saw Elijah as an obstacle, a threat that could shatter her empire if left unchecked. Unable to ignore Elijah's growing influence, Jezebel sought to silence him. Her fury reached its peak, and she sent a messenger to Elijah with a deadly threat: so may the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. Jezebel's words were sharp, filled with venom, but beneath the fury lay a deep fear. Was she truly as invincible as she believed? Or was Elijah the beginning of her downfall? Jezebel's anger burned like an uncontrollable fire within her, and she would stop at nothing to destroy the one man who stood in her way. Elijah, though fearless in his faith, knew the extent of Jezebel's power. In the face of her wrath, he fled for his life. journeying into the wilderness, exhausted, afraid, and seeking solace. But even in his retreat, Elijah was not without hope. God, in his mercy, provided for him, sending an angel to sustain him with food and water. Elijah's strength was restored, but more than that, he was given a command. God spoke to him not with thunder or lightning, but with a gentle whisper, urging him to return to Israel and continue his mission. Elijah could have turned back, could have surrendered to the fear that gnawed at him, but his calling was clear. Could he truly turn away from the battle he had begun? And so, Elijah returned, ready to face the storm that was Jezebel. He called for a public contest, a showdown on Mount Carmel, a challenge that would determine once and for all which God was the true God. The people of Israel gathered at the foot of the mountain, curious and uncertain. Would they stand with the gods of their ancestors or bow to the false idols of Baal? Elijah proposed a test, 2 altars, one for Baal, one for Yahweh. The prophets of Baal, 450 inches number, cried out to their God, offering sacrifices and prayers. But Baal remained silent. Elijah mocked them, asking if their God was asleep or too busy to respond. Despite their frantic calls and desperate rituals, Baal did not answer. What did their silence reveal about the gods they served? Was this the power Jezebel had entrusted herself to? Or was something deeper at play? Then, with quiet confidence, Elijah prepared his own altar. He soaked it with water, making it impossible for fire to be kindled by ordinary means. And then, with a simple prayer to Yahweh, he called upon the Lord. In an instant, fire rained down from the heavens, consuming the sacrifice, the wood, and even the water. It was a miraculous sign, undeniable, irrefutable that Yahweh was the one true God. The people of Israel, overwhelmed by the divine display, fell to their knees in awe. But Jezebel, blinded by her fury and pride, refused to relent. Instead of repenting, she sought vengeance. She ordered the execution of the false prophets of Baal. But even this victory was not enough to quell her wrath. The seeds of destruction had already been planted, and her heart remained as hardened as ever. In the wake of the contest on Mount Carmel, Jezebel's anger burned hotter than ever. She could not bear the humiliation, and she would not allow her power to be questioned. She sent word to Elijah once more, "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely. If by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them." Was 60? No. But this time, Elijah did not flee. Having witnessed the power of God firsthand, he knew that Jezebel's threats were empty, powerless in comparison to the Almighty. Yet Jezebel's grip on Israel remained strong, and the battle between her and the prophets of Yahweh was far from over. Jezebel's reign became one of blood and fire. Her enemies, both political and spiritual, were hunted down relentlessly. Those who dared to defy her were captured and executed, leaving a trail of bodies behind her, their lives snuffed out by her insatiable thirst for control. The streets of Israel bore witness to this reign of terror, as the bodies of the fallen were left in her wake, a grim reminder of the price of disobedience. Jezebel was not a ruler who tolerated dissent. She crushed it with an iron fist, her wrath unyielding. Her enemies did not simply disappear, they were hunted, chased down like animals, and their lives extinguished in the most brutal of ways. The kingdom trembled beneath the weight of her power, its people too fearful to speak out, too broken to resist. But in the shadows, a new generation began to rise, a generation that would one day challenge her rule, a generation that would see her fall. All empires, no matter how mighty, are bound by the same truth: they will fall. For Jezebel, the end would not come from an enemy's sword, nor from an invading army, but from the very forces she had so carefully crafted and controlled. Her reign, which had been built on fear, manipulation, and the worship of false idols, would crumble just as the stone statues she had erected, cold and lifeless, soon to be buried beneath the weight of time and retribution. Jezebel had long believed she was untouchable. From the moment she set foot in Israel, she reshaped the kingdom to fit her vision. Every corner of the land bore the imprint of her will, her beauty, her cunning, and her ambition had made her a force to be reckoned with. But in the end, they would be her downfall. Could a woman who had controlled so much truly understand the limitations of her power? Or had she allowed herself to believe she was invincible? She was more than a queen. She was the embodiment of power itself. The people feared her, revered her, and yet she had twisted their faith into something unrecognizable. Jezebel silenced prophets, toppled the old ways, and built a kingdom on the ruins of innocence. But could she keep control forever? As much as she sought to bend the kingdom to her will, she could not escape the fact that even the mightiest forces are governed by fate. She had set her empire on a foundation of false gods and bloodshed. But was that foundation as unshakable as she believed? Every empire has its reckoning. And for Jezebel, it came not from the slow erosion of her own reign, but from the very prophecy she had once disregarded. Jehu, a man who had once served under King Ahab, was now destined to bring her house to ruin. What had been foretold long before her rise to power was about to be fulfilled. Was she so blinded by her ambition that she couldn't see the seeds of her destruction were sown long ago? The prophecy had been clear: the dogs will eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. Spoken by the prophet Elijah, it was a grim forecast that now moved closer to becoming a reality. The prophecy would not be denied, and Jezebel's reign, founded on deceit and terror, would collapse as surely as the walls of Jericho. The question now was not whether she would fall, but how the empire she had built would face its inevitable end. When Jehu rode into Jezreel, the capital city of the northern kingdom of Israel, Jezebel knew that the end was near. She had ruled this land with absolute power for so long, her will unchallenged, her authority unquestioned. Yet now, the time had come for her to face the inevitable, and she found herself staring into the abyss that no throne could protect her from. Could even a queen so fierce, so resolute, to escape the grip of fate? But Jezebel would not go quietly into that dark night. No, she would face her downfall with the same defiance that had marked her rise. She had never bowed before anyone, and she would not begin now. With a heart as cold and unflinching as the stone walls of her palace, Jezebel steeled herself for what was to come. There would be no surrender, no begging for mercy. She had ruled as a queen, and she would face her end as one. As Jehu's men approached the city, Jezebel remained unmoved in her palace, perched high above the streets in her royal chambers. From the window, she looked down at the advancing army, her gaze piercing through the distance, calculating and unwavering. Her heart beat steadily, a queen who had bent the world to her will, now watching the coming storm with the same unflinching resolve that had defined her life. Could the power she once wielded so effortlessly truly slip away so easily, or would her final act be a reminder that she was still the ruler of her fate. Jezebel adorned herself in her finest robes, the same regal garments that had once commanded awe from kings and princes. She painted her face with the beauty that had captivated hearts. Using it as armor against the inevitable, she stood at the window, a proud figure, gazing out at the approaching enemy as though she was still the ruler of all. She surveyed. This was her final act of defiance, a statement that even in death, she would remain queen in her own eyes. Could a woman who had so fiercely controlled an empire truly be diminished by anything, or was her fate already sealed? Her empire already lost, but Jehu, who had risen to claim her kingdom, was not swayed by her beauty, her regal defiance, or the image of power she projected. To him, Jezebel was a symbol of everything that had corrupted Israel, a queen who had led her people into idolatry and sin. With cold precision, he commanded that she be thrown from the window, for no place could remain for a queen who had betrayed her own people. And so, the queen who had once commanded armies, manipulated kings, and shaped the fate of nations, fell from her perch. Jezebel's fall was swift, her body tumbling from the heights of her royal chambers, crashing to the ground below. The city was left in stunned silence, as though the very earth had trembled at her fall. Could anyone have foreseen such a dramatic and final end for the woman who had once held the power to shake kingdoms? True to the prophecy, her body was desecrated by dogs. They came, devoured her flesh, and left only a few bones behind. Her once proud name, which had resonated through the halls of power, he was now reduced to a mere whisper in the wind, a tragic symbol of a woman who had sought to build an empire with the force of her will, only to watch it crumble beneath her. Could she have ever imagined that her empire, built on fear and manipulation, would be reduced to nothing more than a forgotten memory, scattered to the winds like dust? Her death, however, was not the end of the story. The fall of Jezebel marked a pivotal turning point for Israel. Her reign had left deep scars on the nation, a mark of spiritual decay that would not be easily erased. But as her body lay cold, a new chapter began to unfold. Could Israel truly heal from the wounds she had inflicted? Or had her influence been so profound that it would linger, haunting the land for generations? With Jezebel's death came the opportunity for renewal. The kingdom was now free from the grip of the false gods she had imposed upon them. And Jehu's reign began with a violent purification. The altars of Baal were torn down. The statues that had once been revered shattered, and the worshippers of Baal were ruthlessly destroyed. Jehu's actions were swift, but was the kingdom truly ready for the kind of restoration that would rid it of the corruption Jezebel had fostered? Israel's return to Yahweh was not immediate, but it was inevitable. The idols were dismantled, the corrupt priests executed, and the people slowly began to reclaim their faith. The restoration was not without its challenges. How could a people so deeply entrenched in idolatry and fear find their way back to the truth they had abandoned? But the memory of Jezebel's reign, though brutal, had become the catalyst for this spiritual awakening. Could Israel truly rise from the ashes of the kingdom she had built? Or would the shadows of her reign continue to linger over the land? Yet, the cost had been high. Jezebel's reign had left a legacy of fear, division, and corruption. The people had been led astray, many losing their way, and their hearts were scarred by the chaos she had wrought. The wounds of her rule would not be healed overnight. Generations would pass before Israel could truly recover. And even then, the echoes of Jezebel's influence would never be fully erased. Could the people of Israel ever forget the price they paid for allowing a queen like Jezebel to rise to power? Or would her shadow forever haunt their history? In the end, Jezebel's story serves as a warning, one that echoes through the ages. Her ambition, her ruthlessness, and her defiance against the will of God led to her destruction. She had sought to shape Israel to her will, using fear, manipulation, and power to rewrite its destiny. But was she truly prepared to face the consequences of her actions? Or did she believe, until the very end, that she was invincible? Jezebel's fall was a testament to the fact that no one, not even the most powerful ruler, can escape the repercussions of their choices. Was it ever truly within her power to control fate? Or was she always destined to fall from the very throne she had built? Jezebel's death was not merely the fall of a queen. It was the death of a vision that sought to remake the world in her image, to replace the worship of the true God with false idols. Her empire had been built on blood, deceit, and manipulation, and now it crumbled beneath her. But what was it that drove her to believe she could defy God, that her power could be eternal? In the end, was it ambition that blinded her to the truth? Or was there something darker at play? Some fatal flaw in her character that led her to destroy all that was pure? It was the death of an empire, one built on fear, manipulation, and the blood of the innocent. And yet, even in her death, Jezebel's story leaves behind a lasting legacy. It is a story of pride, ambition, and the inevitable downfall of those who seek to control the world through force and fear. Could anyone who had built their empire on such foundations truly expect it to endure? Or was her collapse the inevitable result of defying divine order? Her tale is a reminder that no one is beyond the reach of judgment, that no empire is immune to collapse, and that even the most powerful will eventually face the consequences of their actions. In the end, Jezebel was not just a queen. She became a symbol, the symbol of the dangers of unchecked power, of the devastating consequences of living a life without reverence for the divine. Her story may have ended in darkness, but it left behind a message that would resonate through the ages. Could anyone who followed in her footsteps ignore the lessons of her fall? Or would the legacy of her ambition and destruction shape the destiny of Israel for generations to come? Jezebel's story is one that transcends time, a tale of ambition, power, and the inevitable consequences of seeking to control the world through fear and deceit. She rose to power through manipulation, built her empire on the false worship of idols, and yet, in the end, her reign crumbled. A tragic reminder that no matter how strong we may feel, no one is immune to the consequences of their actions. Her story teaches us a powerful lesson. True power does not come from domination or control, but from integrity, humility, and a deep reverence for the divine. When we place ourselves above others, when we seek to manipulate and control through fear, we are not building an empire. We are setting the stage for our own downfall. Jezebel's tragic end is a reflection of what happens when ambition blinds us to the truth, when we forsake our values for the pursuit of personal gain. In our own lives today, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that power, wealth, and influence are the ultimate goals. We live in a world where success is often measured by how much we have, how many people follow us, and how much control we wield. But Jezebel's fall reminds us that the price of this kind of success is too high. We may reach great heights, but without integrity, we risk losing everything. So, what lesson can we take from Jezebel's rise and fall? True success is measured not by how much power we gain, but by how much we give, by how much we lift others up, and by how faithfully we walk the path of righteousness. Let us be reminded that no amount of worldly success can replace the peace and fulfillment we find when we live with integrity, kindness, and a respect for the greater good. As we reflect on her story, let's remember that our actions, no matter how small, have consequences. We must ask ourselves, what kind of legacy do we want to leave behind? Will we be remembered for building others up, for creating a world based on respect, love, and truth? Or will we leave behind a legacy of division, manipulation, and fear? If you found value in this story, if it has stirred something in your heart, I encourage you to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Leave a comment and share your thoughts. I would love to hear how this story has impacted you and what lessons you've learned along the way. Thank you for being part of this journey, for taking the time to reflect and grow with me. Let's take the lessons from Jezebel's story, turn them into action, and create a future built on strength, truth, and righteousness.